Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Live. This is just a little, I don't know, whatever, impromptu live session here. I wanted to try one of the aged foliage papers from that pack. The link's in the description if you want to see what these look like. They're ruled, lined on one side, and just kind of blank on the other, or just sans ruled lines on the back side of it. That's what side I'm using. I'm using a half piece right here, but this one right here is a half page with a lot of imagery on here. Okay, and they're really large. I haven't worked with foreground imagery, I don't think, in a scene that is this large before. All right, now this is a half page, but essentially it's about a quarter page worth of imagery that we're going to be working on because we really don't need to add anything to this, this established imagery on this type of stationery paper. So I don't know, it's pretty cool because it puts you kind of in, I don't know, it's not worm's eye, but like an insect's eye view of this scenario because these flowers are just so large. All right, I'm going to be working with nature set number 27 on this for the most part. I thought some of these leaves in here were kind of similar to the ones in here anyways, and I thought that lighter toned area of these flowers could be achieved with a pastel pencil by adding some of that tone to the birch tree trunks in here. So we're going to give it a try. Yeah, I mean, you can do just about anything. I was thinking about all kinds of different sets that would work in here, and you're just using this as a foreground, so I don't know, just about anything goes. But I thought these birch ones would be really, potentially really, I don't know, whatever, harmonious with this type of imagery. Okay, so for me, working with this type of imagery in here, and then stamping backgrounds to it is the thing that I always have a question about in my preliminary tests with this type of paper, because I don't necessarily want to stamp over those objects or cover them up, okay? Inevitably, I don't know, I do, because I don't do a lot of, I'm not going to take the time to do a lot of careful masking of the forms in here. I'm just too lazy to do that. So, like, for example, I'm going to stamp these birch trees right in here. But now this is going to be this way. So this whole section right here, I need to kind of mute, okay? Maybe I just need to take off like all the ink off of that area. And then I'm going to kind of wipe some ink up from that area. Now some of these, that might still print out because it's black ink and dark. Did I mop off the, yeah, I mopped off the right side. Correct side, I should say. But I just want to take most of it off. Okay, and that's a thick ink, so I kind of took a decent amount off. Hello, Linda. Should be a quick one here because everything's already, not everything, but a lot of it's already done for me. I'm getting a little bit addicted to these quick scenes done on these pre-printed papers. I'm kind of hooked on them right now because I just haven't done a lot of that before. You know, we started off with, I think it was the wood grain paper, but that's kind of like a generic background though. So it's like you're stamping out a full scenario on it. And then Deanna's papers, might have been the first thing where we were working around like really specific areas on some of those ones. Now we're working around like specific objects. So it's kind of fun to kind of explore that. Okay, now you see where I've removed that. I probably removed like way too much of that, but we'll just kind of make it kind of, it's supposed to be like this misty type of environment. And I can see some of my lines down here. I'll just draw that in. I'll reestablish it a little bit. Okay, so there's a tree right there. I'm working around this deer right here. So let's go with something like this right here. We're going to stamp 3 objects in here and almost be done. Okay, let's see. Think about this. I'm stamping this one lower. These trees are a little bit larger than the first one that I stamped. So I'll follow suit and stamp this one a little bit lower than this one. It's about an inch maybe lower. So lower on the horizon, or lower on the card, Western perspective, it represents something closer to us. And I'm using a hybrid ink on this, but if you have like a VersaFine Clair or something like that, that would be a really great one to use on this paper, I believe. Hello, Megan. How are you? Yeah, Deanna's paper is really fun. Hers, on some of her real specific ones, they really, I kind of have to sit on it for a while. I mean, you could come up with anything, but I don't have like a bunch of them, so I have like one of each design that she's sent to me in the past. So I really want to kind of maximize it. So some of them I kind of sit on for a while, you know, and I don't know, whatever, let the ideas swirl around in the subconscious before I kind of utilize them. I have one that this purple one with this kind of this S-curve type of, I don't know, like a nebula type of amorphic, I don't know, whatever, like a cloud type of thing that I've been wondering how I should use that one. Okay, now I've wiped off a lot of the ink off the bottom of this one, so it looks like it's kind of going into mist or something like that. And also, it's because I don't want it going in front of that branch too much. It will, but like I said, I'm too lazy to kind of like mask everything out completely or carefully. Well, you can just, yeah, if you're using these pre-printed papers, everything's not done for you. And matter of fact, for me, I have to think more about how I'm going to use it than not. Because you can just see it as like images that you've stamped yourself too. You know, except they're painterly and watercolored. But it's a really good merger though, because we can't do that in rubber stamping, okay? There's that brushwork, there's the gesture to it and all that. So kind of having these kind of firm, static things. I mean, these are static too, but they're real gestural, okay? It's a nice element to add to our scenes. Okay, check this out right here. This I took out way too much. Now, if I stamped it out with a stamp positioner, I can kind of remedy that, but I can see, you know, just really lightly, you know, where that trunk is. So I'm just going to re-establish that like that. I'll just shade them accordingly. Okay, so I'm looking at this right in here. Yeah, let me use my sedge filler. I'm going to take off the edges here a little bit. And let's get a little bit of extra texture in here. About like so. And sedge filler, tiny rock small, a formidable combo. All right, texturing in there. anchors it down. I think we're almost, yeah, we're almost done with the imagery portion of it. Okay, I better add this in right now if I'm going to. Okay, now here's where things get, oh, I don't know, whatever, integrated, I guess, for me, and it's, let me see, let's use this one. When I look at the imagery on here, now I don't have imagery to match everything on these types of papers, but the color scheme. So see, I grabbed this color scheme right here. The brown tones that I have in colored pencils, it kind of matches, you know, somewhat the tones that are in this paper right here. And I'm going to try and follow suit with the imagery that I stamp in here too, if I have the correct pads. Some of my pads are getting really kind of worked here with age. Okay, that one's a good one. All right, light brown. So that light brown is kind of that tone right in here, right here. I think I had a memento too that would look pretty good. Rich cocoa, that one. Let's see. Okay, now this has a little bit of a gesture to it, so I'm trying to figure out a direction for it. Okay, I'm only stamping about, I don't know, whatever, a little over a third of that image. I want it light, and then what we'll do is we'll go in and add a darker one. All right, so when you do this, you kind of create a lot of extra space in here, distance-wise, and it's similar to what's going on with those tones in the background right there. So we're kind of, whatever, harmonizing with what's going on right here in the background when you use colors from the established, pre-established color scheme. And you don't have to be right on either, you know, just as long as it's in the same family, it's, you know, it'll be fine. Or, I don't know, you can break out of it too. I haven't really experimented, you know, like with contrasts too much. But if you notice, I do have a green here. When I've been playing around with these other papers so far, if I just stick only with the colors out of, you know, in here, sometimes it looks a little anemic to me. So I feel, you know, we need to kind of bump it up a little bit with, yeah, kind of a complementary color, like this one that I just did yesterday. If I didn't add the browns up here, just that these tones right in here, it just didn't look right. It looked anemic to me. You know, that colored pencil, those colored pencil types of applications. It needed to get bumped up a little bit, you know, in terms of the intensity and visual kind of richness of the piece. All right, let's go with these leaves right here. And again, these leaves, I got lucky here because these leaves are really similar to these ones in here. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah, what I like about these papers, though, too, it's not a speed thing. I'm not, like, you know, stamping out scenes and just, you know, I'm taking, like, whatever, 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes to do them. But I think you could, though, you know. I've been doing larger pieces, the half page folded, you know, reflection type of thing. I wouldn't do a quarter page with this, you know, where, you know, the quarter page is like that, you know, there would be nothing to stamp in there. Yeah, you can do a really fast pieces with this type of whatever process concept. All right, see that right there? I'm using black right here. I get, you know, these objects are in black here. So if I used brown up there and no black anywhere else, these things would like look a little bit, it would look, I don't know, I think it would look a little bit kind of disconnected. All right, there's a couple different, these leaves are the same, but they're flip-flopped, so one of them's kind of leaning this way, so I can go like this. So I'm kind of creating this kind of curtainy type of thing where the leaves are, you know, I wouldn't want them kind of arcing over like this across the whole thing. It would be too, a little bit, maybe too monotonous. Okay, so we'll go like this. And then we do it at different kind of heights too. All right, let's overlap this one a little bit too, like that. And let's see, let's go like this. All right, so you kind of use it at different angles and directions like that. And that looks pretty decent. I can come in right here, but I think we need to leave this open. I hardly ever leave like my corners open. But this one right here, it's so dominant. I don't want to put like another thing right here. It would just be, I don't know, that looks okay too though, I guess. It would look like a little portal into another dimension, but I think I need some area for this like deer to kind of walk right in here. And it's kind of interesting that my reeds are always like one of those things that are in the foreground, and that's one of the closest things to us. It's the foreground thing that I put in the corners. Like, I don't know, whatever, like 40% of all the things I do. But this one, it really needs the kind of this opening right here to let that deer out. I mean, you could, you know, you could put it there though. You know, when I looked at it, you know, it didn't look too bad. You know, like there too. But a little bit much since it's already going across the entire upper area. But see what those images do back there when you utilize that color scheme and then you utilize lighter mid-tone versions of it, stamping those objects in the background, it really creates a lot of depth. All right. Look at this one right here. That looks like the natural kind of source of light, huh? I usually have it kind of more central, but this one will be coming from one side for the most part on those trees. So all these trees will be illuminated on the same side of the trunk, basically. Okay, so this one's right here. We'll add some shading in like this. I need to be careful right in here on this one because I've just kind of drawn that in. There's not really much detailing, if any. So I need to go really light with that. All right, so all of them are getting a right side of trunk shading scheme. And let's see. I'm getting a little bit heavy-handed right here. I need to create a little bit of a transition. All right, let's go like that. And that lighting will be coming from right there. So roughly my shadow scheme will kind of go in that direction to reiterate that as being, you know, the basic source of light. So you kind of, your angle gets a little bit different depending on where your object is in relation to that source of light. So right over here, and you go right down to the base of this. And you just kind of use that as a guide because this isn't like supposed to be like cement that, you know, that the trees are growing in. It's kind of curved, so maybe the the shadow would be angled accordingly. Okay. Maybe this one right here, it's like right in the middle of this light source right here. So maybe I'll do like some center lighting. I almost never do this right here, where the shadow is kind of going down the middle of the trunk like that. And then here's a little trick too, when you're toning in like tree trunks or something like that. See, I'm gonna go a little bit darker in one area, and then I'll kind of skip an area, and I'll go like this. I mean, for the most part, there's a tone on there, but kind of oscillate the strength of that shadow a little bit. So you can see it's going a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, a little bit darker like that, a little bit lighter, and then change maybe the alter the distance of that darker shade, darker value. And that makes it seem a little bit more, I don't know, it looks a little bit more varied and thus a little bit richer like that. All right, let's see. Hello, Janet. How are you? Does I've seen you spray your you can spray the media like okay, so if I use a pastel on here, that's not going to be fixed on here just like inks are. So you would need to spray that, and then also there's a lot of my spray videos. It's dye-based inks on cardstock, okay, and it's when you layer and layer and layer transparent media over the top of one another. There might be dye-based inks, and there might be alcohol inks on top of that. These are transparent types of they're transparent media, and what they can do is they can dry kind of dull, okay? And it's not just, you don't really notice it if you just do one layer of color, one layer of dye ink, or one layer of alcohol ink, something like that. Alcohol, you don't really run into it as much, but the dye-based things, but you lose some of the saturation. Okay, this is a acrylic paint pen. I'm going to put this on the side of the trees facing my light. So in most cases, it's going to be on the left side of the tree. But again, kind of vary your application. Don't just like do one solid line like that. It would look a little bit I don't know what, awkward, I guess. Okay, so let's go like this. See that? You can kind of sketch it in there a little bit like that. I just do it really lightly. I'm not going with a line like that. I guess you could if you're more comfortable with that, but I kind of do this wispy kind of motion like that. Now it looks weird, but we're going to even it out though with the pastel pencil, so I'm not worried about getting it, on there really perfectly or anything like that. Sometimes I'm going out of the line. I'm going off the tree trunk. Okay, but again, the spraying those saturated ink scenes like that, it's like someone, if you put like a stain on wood or something like that, how like all the wood grains really come out, or if you you put whatever is that lacquer or something like that on wood, like bare wood, you see all the depth of the grains come through. And that's what that spray sealant can do, because in that brief moment that that it hits the scene and it's drying, it penetrates those layers and it kind of makes it look more like your piece did, the surface did when the inks were wet. Okay. Now that it happens to be the case with most inks. Like my Marvy inks, if I only use Marvy, you know, on paper like glossy cardstock, it doesn't kind of mute. The colors don't get kind of this foggy kind of coating when the inks dry, but with just about every other like dye-based ink that I've used, it dries dull. There's this dull sheen on there, and that's, you know, what that spray sealant can remedy, and it can give you kind of retain, when dry, the appearance of a freshly inked surface. All right, so you see these little white highlights in there, and see how it kind of, these objects in the background are kind of now relating to these objects here, the pre-printed papers. And you can also enhance, you know, what's on here too. You can go in and add a little bit of highlighting now, you know, because there's this light source in here, so you can add in, you know, a few little highlights on these leaves if you want to. I don't think they really need it, but I've been doing it and I thought, it looks pretty good. I think it makes it kind of integrates the those images that are already on these textured papers. It integrates them from a lighting standpoint into the scene a little bit more. So, you know, these are kind of like, they don't want these to stand out like so much on stationery paper, you know, but, you know, that's when you're using it for like a letter or something like that. Now it's kind of being incorporated into a scene. So, you know, I think I say, you know, why not? You know, I think if you're going to do it on other objects within the piece, why not do it on the, I don't know, whatever someone's painting, basically. All right. So that is the white pen. We might be adding more too, but it's a good idea to get as much as this down now if you're going to be adding in pastel pencil into it, because it's hard to kind of draw this over like a chalky pastel surface at times. Okay, depends how well your marker is flowing. Okay, because there's a little tip on here, and you can get pastel going up into that tip. And then, you know, you just kind of scribble it off or whatever, but it can kind of clog. So if you know you're going to want a certain amount of this in a certain area, like right here, I want this little corridor of kind of like sparkly lighting in here. I'll add most of that right now. All right, so see that right through there. It gets a little busy, but again, this is, you know, we'll add in some additional white pigment ink. We'll add in some soft applications of white. This is, you know, for the most part, a pretty crisp application of white. So, pastel pencil. Yeah, I don't know if a white colored pencil would work. It might. I find white colored pencils to be a little bit, you know, almost see-through in a way. Like I can't draw with a white colored pencil. Not mine, at least. I don't know about others, but I can't really draw with a white colored pencil over like dark colored pencils or something like that and have it look white. It's just, you know, that wax is just, it's just showing right through. Okay, so I'm adding this, and just like my shaded side, I'll add a kind of an uneven application of this. So I'll add it right here, And then maybe go down. I'll skip a little area and have a little bit thinner. Thinner meaning I just won't coat it as much. Something like that. And then, let's see. That's a lot of softness right there. I don't know, maybe that was too much. If you do that, you can just go back in and add kind of a crisper edge back into it. You can kind of go back and forth. You can oscillate light and dark. Pastels you can kind of wipe off too, just with your finger. But I don't think I used brown in here, did I? I think I forgot. So we can make these brownish, gray tones a little bit richer with a warmer dark tone like this. Okay. But you could almost just do, I wasn't even thinking about this one. Like I said, I kind of forgot, but you can just color with 1 or 2 tones too, and if you want to make this a really fast process. All right, we'll anchor that shadow. If you want to make this seem like an even brighter light, then you make the shadow darker. All right, and some white pigment ink. Hello, Sharita. How's those experiments going, Sharita? Sharita, how long have you been stamping now for? Time so sure flies. Have you been doing it for a year yet? So one of the nice things about stamping is that one of the things that I've been stamping now for, gosh, it was like probably 1990. I was working for another stamp company in the late 80s. Stamp of the Hand company, but I wasn't doing like the stamping. Yeah, I was designing some stamps, but I hadn't stamped anything because they had demo people for that and people that would make up the samples. But when I came up with that line of nature designs, they said, hey, Kevin, we don't know how to use these. You demonstrate these. And that's when I started using them. I knew how they would be used in concept. All right, white pigment ink. And so that's when I started stamping, but man, and I stamped the same way. We were just talking about glossy cardstock and dye-based inks. Because that's how I started, and I really love that look. I just did a piece, using the, what's called Lights Over the Pacific, and you can really get super saturated deep tones with that. Super deep and rich tones. But like these pre-printed papers, stationery papers like this is like all really new, so I love that. You can kind of just keep discovering new ways to utilize whatever existing techniques, concepts, and everything like that, but just kind of apply it to a new, in this case, surface. I mean, that's what most of it's been. Most of it's been kind of new surface experiments, and then you have to use sometimes, a compatible type of media with it, like the metallic papers especially, but like this one right here, this is like the first time I've ever done anything with such a huge foreground element like this. You know, we don't have like gigantic plants like this in stamping or scenic stamping. And even if you did, this would be stamped out like that. You wouldn't have all those washy tones like that. We would have to have like a big open flower like that, and you'd stamp it out in whatever color, and then you'd have to go in here and paint all these elements in like that and have this washy area, you know. So it's just, I don't know, it's nice kind of doing something really kind of new, you know, on a pretty regular basis now. I got addicted to it. It's like the first 1,500 videos on this channel are probably die-based inks and glossy cardstock, or a lot of them. I don't know, there were some other things like photo stamping and things like that, or brayers, you know, but I don't know. I'm glad I broke out of that and started using a lot of the papers that I had collected over the years. All right, so anyway, so bringing in some of that tone like that. I think these softer tones like this in here, they're not watercolors, but I think it brings it. See these little washy things that are going on in this background paper? I think this kind of, it doesn't emulate it, but it just harmonizes with these color value transitions that are going on in the paper really nicely. And so it's, you know, it's utilizing, you know, a lot of the techniques that I always use with either dye-based inks and the acrylic paint pens and white pigmenting, but it's just kind of applying it over to this paper right here for a pretty quick scene. So this is going on about the 37-minute mark right here. And I mean, this, you know, it's a half-page scene, but I only had to do like a quarter-page worth of technique on here, and it was still kind of playing around with and experimenting with this, you know. The experiment for me on this one was getting these transitions into, you know, a fairly large cluster of pre-existing imagery like that without having that background look like it's, you know, stamped over the front of the foreground in here. So you just kind of transition it, have it kind of go from darker into lighter areas. Unless you're going to be someone that's going to really take the time to mask off all of these little objects, I wouldn't do that. That would just take too much time. I mean, you can use things like liquid frisk. You know, who wants to do that though? I don't know. Some people do, and it looks great, but you know, it's a little bit of a tedious work there. All right. So, anyways, this one will get mounted onto a piece. This one would probably look pretty cool in a reflection format. You know, you can do. Now, this one already has my stuff on here that I did last night, but if you want to see what this kind of would look like in reflection like that, that is pretty cool. I wouldn't have this foreground on here, but you can kind of see what it looks like. Oh, wait. I think I made up a couple blanks here. Reflection card blanks like this, because I anticipated probably trying some of these papers out in reflection cards. This is a gold that matches a little bit better with this one, but it'd be kind of cool like that. Like all that foliage reflected down here. This one it looks a little bit different too. I've mentioned this in other videos, but if someone's just watching this for the first time, when you have this gold reflective cardstock like that, mirrored cardstock, it reflects that golden color. You can see that golden light even on the black paper like that. So this is what this looks like this. And you throw this down here and look at that. There's this rich kind of golden light on here too. So and you get those objects kind of reflecting up here. I would put some imagery down here just to kind of, you know, be a static image against this kind of moving background, you know, when things are opening and closing like that. See this? See, when you don't have objects down here, you know, you don't have that these objects moving against that, which reiterates that whole kind of cool. I forgot what that thing is called. You know, these objects are moving, you know, wider, you know, than the, you know, farther than the point, further away from the point of access right here. I can't remember the name of it. Someone's reminded me about that in the past. Parallax? I think it's parallax or something like that. But yeah, but that would look pretty cool like that, you know, in a reflection card. So I don't know, maybe I should format this one like that. It looks pretty good. And then you get whatever you've done up here gets reflected down here, so you get twice the effect for half the work. Yeah, maybe it's a reflection card. I don't know. I'll think about it. But anyway, that is the card right there. Let's see here. Hello, Debbie. I have only been trying scene stamping. Okay, you've been at it for 2 years now. Okay, got it. Yeah. Time flies. Yeah, it's been 2 years at this point in time, huh? Sharita was awesome. I think Sharita had just gotten. I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I was like really kind of jazzed when I saw Sharita was just getting into kind of just like card making and crafting in general. But then, you know, I saw her doing. I think I saw you doing the the printable holographic, you know, vinyl sticker paper or something like that. Just, you know, right off the bat, you know, in some of your first experiments. So, and it looked really good. So it's like, oh, yeah, your learning curve's going to, you know, go so fast with your kind of openness to, you know, all the techniques. Sometimes when people have been stamping a long time and then they're trying a bunch of different techniques, sometimes they're locked into a process that they've been practicing for a really long time. So, you know, some hasn't been doing, you know, they've been doing matte cardstock and they've been stamping for years, and then they try glossy. Sometimes they're trying forcing some of the techniques that they did on the matte cardstock, and, you know, it might not work the same as the glossy cardstock, you know, in terms of like drying time of inks or something like that, or they might use, you know, VersaFine Clear oil-based pigment ink, and it's not drying on the glossy cardstock where they've always used it on, you know, matte cardstock or something like that. So yeah, it was great seeing all of those different types of experiments, you know, coming out really nicely in those early stages. All right. Yeah, it is more enjoyable, isn't it? All right, so anyways, thanks for everyone for checking out this impromptu little scene here. Maybe it's a reflection card, I don't know. I think it looks pretty cool though. I really like that warm light reflecting up into this kind of warm toned, you know, paper like that. I think that looks pretty cool too, like that too. But I don't know. Those reflection cards are really fun and a little bit more dynamic sometimes. And then again, you have all those kind of cool things reflecting down here like that. It would make this like a tiny little pond, and, you know, with flowers that huge, it would mean like this is like a tiny puddle or something like that, as opposed to this slope. But I don't know, if it looks cool, who cares, right? That's what I always say. All right, folks. My largest foreground elements in a scene ever. Yeah. Fun stuff. I guess I'm not afraid. I won't be afraid of enormous, like worm's eye view elements in a scene going forward. Not that I have been, but I don't know. It was just always one of those things in the past. From years ago, I never would have thought to do something like this. So, yeah. Fun stuff. All right, folks. Have a great rest of evening. Hope to see you in the next stream.